If today were your last day on earth and you were face to face with God, would he speak your name? Or would he just see someone who talked a lot about him, but never really let him in? I'm not asking you if you repeat nice phrases, if you go to services, or if you have quotes about God on your social media. I'm asking you something much more uncomfortable. Does God truly know you, or do you only know an idea of him that you built yourself? Because there's something almost nobody tells you. You can spend years listening to messages, singing, serving, talking about faith, and still stay stuck in the first levels of intimacy with God. You think you're high, but you're halfway. You feel close, but God sees distance. In this video, I'm not going to give you nice theory. We're going to walk together through 6 real levels of intimacy with God, from the surface to the point where your life no longer belongs to you and God starts living through you. And as you listen, God is going to show you what level you're really in, even if you don't like the answer. If, as we go on, you feel that God is confronting you, don't close this video. Stay until the end, and when you finish, write in the comments what level you feel God showed you you're in today. This message is not safe, it's not comfortable, and it's not for someone who wants to stay the same. But if you dare to listen to it all the way through, this could be the moment when you stop living halfway and start a journey so that God truly knows you. Imagine for a moment that everything around you goes dark. There's no music, no lights, no people, no screen, no social media, no noise, just you and God. No masks, no appearances, no roles to play, nothing to prove, just his gaze and yours. In that silence, what would God see when he looks at you? Someone who truly sought him, or someone who learned to talk about him without really knowing him? Would he see a son, a daughter, or would he see a stranger who was close to the things of God, but far from the heart of God? There's something that hurts, but it needs to be said. Not everyone who pronounces the name of God lives close to God. Not everyone who speaks confidently about faith lives a deep faith, and not everyone who feels spiritual is at a high level of intimacy. Most people stay halfway. Most settle in one of the first levels and call that enough. But God did not create you to live on the surface. God designed you for depth, for intimacy, for a kind of relationship where your life stops revolving around you and starts revolving around him. There are 6 levels of intimacy with God that we're going to walk through. Not so you can compare yourself to others, but so you can be honest with yourself and ask, what level am I really in? And above all, am I willing to pay the price to move forward? As you listen, don't defend yourself. Don't look for excuses. Don't think about others. This message is between you and God. He knows perfectly well what level you're in. The question is whether you're going to dare to see it. The first level is more common than you think. Imagine a person who knows many things about a famous figure. They know their birthday, their story, their quotes. They know where they live, what music they listen to, what clothes they wear. They can talk about that person for hours. But if that famous person walks into a room, they don't recognize them by name. They don't call them. They don't look for them. Why? Because knowing about someone is one thing, and actually knowing them is something completely different. That's how multitudes live with God. They've heard stories about him since they were kids. They know that God is love, that God forgives, that God gives new opportunities. They can repeat phrases. They can quote a few lines. They can even correct others when, in their opinion, they're wrong. But when they're alone, when the house goes quiet, when the night feels heavy, they realize they know things, but they don't know how to be with God. The first level of intimacy with God is this: knowing about God without knowing how to be with God. It's going to places where people talk about him, but never learning to talk with him. It's listening to the stories of others, but never building your own story with him. At this level, people can get emotional with a phrase, cry with a song, feel touched in a moment, but their daily life stays exactly the same. God is an interesting topic, not a real person they walk with. A person in this level says the right things, but lives empty. They can explain ideas, but they can't explain what God is doing in their heart today, in this moment. Their relationship with him is like an old file, something they open once in a while when the situation demands it, but not something alive. Maybe that's where you are. You know a lot of things, you've heard a lot, but if you had to describe your recent story with God, you'd draw a blank. And if that's the case, it's not for you to feel condemned. It's so you can understand that God is calling you to something deeper. The trap of this level is that it looks good on the outside. The people who live here can impress others, but they don't move God with information. It's not the amount of data that attracts his heart. It's the sincerity of the one who truly seeks him. You were not created to be a spectator who comments from the stands. You were created to be someone who sits at the table with God. If you've lived years in this first level, that doesn't have to be your ending. It can be the starting point for something new. The second level is when you stop seeing God only as a concept and start recognizing that he is real. You no longer say, maybe he exists. Now you say, I believe in God, and that matters. It's a necessary step, but it's not enough. At this level, you recognize that God is above you. You know there are things he sees that you don't. You realize the world can't be explained by chance alone. You feel the need for something greater than you. That feeling of emptiness that nothing can fill starts pointing upward. But here, one of the most dangerous confusions appears. Believing that just because you say I believe in God, you're already close to God. Believing that by accepting his existence, you already have intimacy with him. It's like someone who recognizes that the ocean exists, but never comes close enough to touch the water. They see it, they admit it, but they stay dry. At this level, you can believe and still live as if God were far away. You believe and still make decisions you know grieve him. You believe, but your daily routine is organized completely without him. You believe there's a design, but your life is still only yours. Many people stay here because this level doesn't make them too uncomfortable. It lets them say I believe and keep living the same way. It lets them feel a little better than those who say they don't believe, without having to surrender their heart. But the purpose of believing is not to give you a title or a label. It's to open the door to a real relationship. Believing is the beginning, not the goal. It's like turning on the light in a room and then staying at the doorway just looking in, never stepping inside. Maybe this is where you are. You would never deny that God exists. You know he has taken care of you. You recognize there were moments where you feel he rescued you from something. But if you're honest, you can't say there's intimacy. You can't say God guides every part of your life. You can't say you whisper his name in secret because you miss him. Don't stay in the comfort of just saying, I believe. God is not only looking for you to acknowledge him, God is looking for your heart. He wants to walk with you, not just be a correct fact in your mind. Before we move on, I want you to do something very simple but very important. If up to this point you feel you've been in one of these first two levels, only information, or only belief, and God is showing you that you've stayed there, I'm going to ask you something. Don't close this video. Stay until the end. And if you can, write right now in the comments, I Dan T want to stay halfway with God. It's not for me. It's a way of putting into words something God is already stirring inside. The third level begins when God stops being only an idea and becomes an experience. There are moments you can't explain with logic. Moments where you feel something invisible yet real touch your life. A word you hear that feels like it was spoken directly to you. A song that breaks you inside. A night when you cry without knowing exactly why, but you feel God is embracing you. At this level, you've had encounters. You've felt his peace in the middle of chaos. You've experienced how a phrase, a story, a whisper inside you can change the direction of a day or of an entire season. You've had moments when you know God was there. An encounter with God leaves a mark. Sometimes it's one night. Sometimes it's a process. It can happen in a service, in your room, on the street, at work. God is not limited. And when he decides to touch you, you know it. You feel that something much greater than you is calling you to change. But here's another danger. Many people turn encounters into the center of their spiritual life. They start chasing sensations, intense moments, emotional highs, but they don't let those encounters turn into decisions. They look for another moment, and then another, and then another, but when it's over, they keep living exactly the same way. The purpose of an encounter is not to give you a nice memory, it's to shake you so you can't keep living the same. It's like when a storm shakes a tree and many leaves fall. God allows strong moments so that the dry leaves in your life fall off, so that his voice becomes impossible to ignore. If you've already had encounters with God, thank him. Not everyone is aware of that. But ask yourself something honestly. What has changed after those moments? Did everything stay at a time of tears and nothing more? Or were there concrete decisions, real changes, firm steps? There are people who live collecting spiritual experiences, but they don't build a solid relationship. They want the impact of the moment, but not the consistency of the process. They say, "God spoke to me," but a week later they live as if they had never heard anything. You weren't designed to depend only on intense sparks. You are called to a constant relationship. An encounter with God is not a destination, it's an invitation. An invitation to walk with Him, not just to visit Him from time to time. I want you to think about your story. Remember that time when you felt God was clearly speaking to you. Maybe it was in a difficult moment. Maybe you were on the verge of giving up. Maybe you didn't understand anything, but you felt He was there. Now ask yourself, what did you do with that? What did your heart decide afterward? If God has already drawn near, don't leave Him waiting at the door. An encounter is God's way of saying, "I don't want to see you only sometimes. I want to walk with you every day." The fourth level is exactly that. You stop visiting God for moments and start walking with Him. It's not just about feeling something strong once in a while, but about inviting Him into every part of your day. Walking with God is learning to talk with Him while you do normal things. It's learning to open the door to Him when nobody sees you. It's telling Him what you feel while you're on the bus, while you work, while you cook, while you do things that seem small. At this level, God stops being just a topic of conversation and becomes a companion on the journey. You no longer speak to Him only when you're in crisis. You talk to Him because you miss Him, because you want His opinion to matter, because you understand that everything you go through takes on a different meaning when He is there. But walking with God has a cost. You can't walk at your own pace and expect Him to bless everything. At some point, you have to decide whether you're going to follow your plans or His. And many times, that means letting go of things you like, stepping away from environments that are slowly killing your fire, saying no to relationships that pull you away from what He wants to do with you. Walking with God sets you apart, not because you are better than others, but because you can no longer dishonor the one you love just to fit in. Suddenly, what you used to tolerate you can't stand anymore. What you used to justify, you can no longer excuse, not because someone is watching you, but because you know God is with you, and you don't want to hurt His heart. This level doesn't always look impressive on the outside. Nobody applauds you for turning off a screen when you know what you're rewatching is corrupting your mind. Nobody congratulates you for forgiving someone who hurt you deeply. Nobody makes a video for every time you choose to obey in secret. But God sees it, and that accumulation of silent decisions forms a real friendship with Him. This is where His voice starts becoming clearer, not because He speaks less in other levels, but because you start turning other noises down. You begin to recognize when it's your fear, when it's your pride, and when it's the peace that can only come from Him. Maybe you're entering this level. You've begun to make changes. You felt God ask you to take steps you don't always understand. Maybe you've lost people. You've lost opportunities that looked good. You've felt the path become narrow. Don't get confused. Many times, that's a sign you're truly starting to walk with Him. I want to make a second important pause here. If you feel that God has already taken you out of only knowing and only believing, and He has allowed you to have encounters, and now you're in this process of starting to walk with Him, I want you to do something when this video ends. I want you to go back and listen again to the minutes where you felt God spoke to you the most, and save this content. Share it with someone you know is struggling with the same things, not to boost numbers, but because God often uses your obedience to touch others. The fifth level of intimacy with God is where everything becomes even more personal. Here, you don't follow God just because you want to avoid suffering or because you fear the consequences of walking away. You follow Him because you fall in love with His heart. In earlier levels, you can obey God out of fear or pressure. You can do the right things out of habit, culture, or fear of losing something. But at this level, the motivation changes. You stop asking, "How far can I go without feeling bad?" and start asking, "What more can I surrender to be closer to Him?" To truly love God is not just a nice feeling every once in a while. It's a deep desire to please Him even when nobody understands your decisions. It's giving Him access to the most broken parts of you, your fears, your wounds, your most shameful mistakes, and not running away when He starts to touch them. Here you realize something strong. God is not waiting for you to arrive perfect. He's waiting for you to arrive sincere. He wants you to stop hiding parts of your heart as if He couldn't see them. He wants to come into those places where even you have been afraid to go, where you keep old guilt, old shame, thoughts you don't dare say out loud. To love God is to allow His light into those locked rooms. It's opening the door to your memory, your story, those moments that broke you, and letting Him look at them with you, not to humiliate you, but to heal you, not to remind you of what you did, but to show you what He can do with what you don't know how to handle. At this level, you start to value things you used to ignore. You begin to appreciate silence with Him, not just intense moments. You find yourself talking to Him under your breath as you walk. You catch yourself thinking about what pleases Him when you're about to make decisions. You start to miss His presence when you get too distracted, and something else happens. Sin stops being just a list of forbidden things and becomes what hurts the one you love. It's no longer, I can't do this. It's, I don't want to do this to God. You start to hate what breaks your connection with Him, not because someone is policing you, but because you know those things dim the closeness you desperately need. This level is not perfect. You still fail. You still stumble. You still get confused. But now, when you fall, you run toward God, not away from Him. You no longer see Him as a distant judge just waiting to punish you, but as someone who loves you too much to leave you where you are. Maybe God is calling you to this kind of love. Maybe nothing superficial satisfies you anymore. Maybe there's something in you saying, I don't want to keep having only moments with Him. I want an entire life revolving around Him. If that's happening, pay attention, because this is often the doorway to the deepest level of all. The sixth level of intimacy with God is where the question completely changes. You stop asking, how much do I know God? And start asking, how much room does God have to live through me? Here, the goal is not to have impressive experiences, or accumulate knowledge, or feel more advanced than others. The goal is that God can use your life however He wants, that your plans are no longer first, that your reputation is no longer the most important thing, that your name can become small if that means His name can become more visible. At this level, something in you dies, and it's not a physical death. It's the death of your ego, your need for control, your obsession with having everything go your way. It's the moment when you understand that your greatest story is not the one you write by your own strength, but the one God writes when you hand Him the pen. It's not about stopping dreaming. It's about surrendering your dreams so God can decide what stays, what changes, and what needs to die. It's about letting Him decide who He's going to bless through you, even if that means going through processes your flesh doesn't want. At this point, obedience is no longer a constant war against yourself. It becomes a natural response to someone you love and trust. It doesn't mean you never feel afraid. It means you no longer let fear have the final word. Love for God pushes your life forward even when you don't understand everything. Being one with God in this sense doesn't mean you become perfect or stop being human. It means your heart beats in alignment with His. What hurts Him starts to hurt you. What He loves starts to move you to action. You no longer need everything to be comfortable in order to say yes. Few people reach this level because it demands something most people want, to give up the idea that life is about them. But where many stop, God keeps calling. He keeps looking for those who are willing to say, I don't want to live only for myself. I want my life to be a place where you feel at home. Maybe you feel far from this level, or maybe God has already started leading you down that path. Maybe you've gone through losses you don't understand. Maybe you've let go of things that were important to you. Maybe you've had to say goodbye to dreams that seemed good. In the middle of all of that, God has not been enjoying your pain. He's been working to break chains you couldn't see, to make room where there wasn't any. The more you surrender, the more room God has to show who He is through you. And even though that doesn't always look spectacular on the outside, in heaven it is very clear when someone decides to stop living halfway and starts living fully surrendered. But with more honesty than at the beginning, what level are you really at with God? Maybe you admit you're in the second. You believe, but you live as if God were far away. Maybe you've had encounters, but you never let those moments turn into decisions. Maybe you're walking with Him, but there are still areas you refuse to surrender. The real tragedy is not being at an early level. I want you to understand something clearly. God is not giving you this X-ray of your heart to shame you. You could have scrolled away. You could have closed it when it started to make you uncomfortable. It speaks of a part of you that is hungry, a part of you that's tired of the surface, a part of you that longs, even if you don't know how to explain it, for God to truly know you. I want to suggest something. God is not shocked. He already knew. but something breaks when you recognize it before him. Second, if you truly don't want to keep living halfway, ask God to take you out of the level you're in and show you what steps you need to take. Ask him to show you what things you need to let go of, what habits you need to cut off, what voices you need to stop listening to, what time you need to start setting aside just for him. When this video ends, go to the comments and write a sentence that is a real commitment. It can be as simple as, God, I don't want to stay halfway, or God, show me the next step. Don't do it to look good in front of anyone. Do it as a reminder for yourself and as a sign before God. If this message confronted you, if it exposed things you didn't want to see, listen to it again in a few days, save it, share it with that person you know has also been living halfway. If today God is calling you, don't ignore him. Don't tell him tomorrow. Don't say, when I have time. Answer now. Right where you are, tell him in your own words, God, I don't want to live halfway anymore. I want you to truly know me, beyond my words, beyond my appearance. Write in the comments a phrase that only you and God know what it means. If this message spoke to your life, don't keep it just for yourself. Share it with someone you love and who you know also needs to leave the surface behind. And if you want to keep receiving content that confronts you, that takes you deeper and not just into entertainment, stay subscribed and turn on whatever you have to turn on so you don't miss what is coming. Not because this channel is important, but because your relationship with God is. Let this not be just another video. Let it be a before and after. Let it be the day you stopped living just knowing about God and started a journey so that God truly knows you.